What I love about the Gene Keys is I find they give you a map to know who you are on a soul level. Who did you come here? So one of my biggest curiosities with anyone I've ever met, if you ever met me, probably at a coffee shop, or if we've had a deep and meaningful conversation, I am someone who likes to go straight to who are you really? And even more than that, I'm curious on who did you come here to be before the world told you who to be? Who are you beyond what your family told you to be, what your culture, what society told you to be, what your best friend in high school told you to be, what your bosses expect from you. I'm so curious about beyond all of that, who are you truly? And the Gene Keys give you a map to actually have data to understand yourself.
Hi, I'm Yolande, and this is The Curious Exchange, a live interactive event where we have conversations to support you in living a happier, healthier, more conscious life with experts who are passionate about their topics. This is the online edition. The Curious Exchange is all about empowering you and the positive impact that these conversations can have. In this edition, we're featuring Alexia Usgaard, a Gene Keys coach that works with high-performing women. She'll be chatting to us about how to live and lead in more alignment with our energetic blueprints. Let's dive in. So I know I can't do it justice at all, but I'll start with the tip of the iceberg. Just a little intro into Alexia, and we'll hear more from her directly. So this woman, she's really come from a very successful career in Silicon Valley, combining her background in integrative biology. She worked with really, really big names in tech and worked with very influential people. And she discovered Gene Keys and found her true calling. And she helps women, especially high-performing women. She mostly works with women, but whatever you share tonight is as applicable to men. She's been featured on TEDx Talks, publications like Forbes 30 Under 100. She hosts a very uplifting podcast, Elevate Daily. If you don't know about it yet, go and follow that. And she works with people all around the globe. But more from her journey we'll hear. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. So thank you so much for being here. And let's start there. Can you just tell us briefly about your personal journey? How did you get to this work? And, maybe if you can touch on, what did leadership look like for you, and why it is that you changed that and what it looks like to you now?
Yeah, it's a good question and a big question. I think our journey is always quite a potent one. I would say for me, I definitely grew up a very hyperachiever. I definitely got the memo young that if you're responsible, if you achieve, if you get the gold stars, if you get the validation, that's how you're loved. That's how you know you're safe. That's how you know you're important. And it created a lot of success for me in a lot of ways. And it also led me to be on a constant chase, constantly seeking to feel worthy, constantly seeking to find my value, if anyone in this room could maybe relate. And life presented a moment, and an unexpected moment. And I was working in the heart of Silicon Valley. I had just gotten promoted. I was in the dream apartment, the whole life situation. I'll never forget it. It was a typical Monday at the office. I had just come back from lunch and I received the call that changed everything. It was the call that I found out my father had passed away. And I think this moment was one of those moments that literally led me to fall to my knees and also woke me completely up. It was in that experience where, of course, if any of you have experienced, I think we all have these wake-up call moments. This was one of my big ones. And I think the biggest piece of it was in that moment of pain, in that moment of grief, I saw very clearly two lessons, very specifically. One was, I don't know who I am. I started going to the office and I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I have no zest for life. I feel numb. I feel empty because I had spent my whole life trying to prove to my dad why I mattered. His love was such a huge part of why I found that I was worth being on the planet. And when that shifted, I was like, I actually don't know who I am if I'm not trying to be something for somebody else. If I'm also not trying to take care of him. My father did struggle with alcoholism, so there was a lot of years of living a secret life, of taking care of him, behind closed doors. So for me, I just had this big moment of, wow, I've spent so long trying to look a certain way and be portrayed a certain way. And it finally was like, who am I really? Who am I really before the world told me who to be? And I don't think this way of living with chronic anxiety and living with this feeling of emptiness is what I have to settle for. And his life also really presented me with a feeling of what is legacy? Because I think if any of you have sat there giving a eulogy, if you've ever lost someone you loved, if you've ever gone through a big heartbreak, there's that big question where you question, like, what do I remember about them? And a big part of my remembrance is actually, I don't care about all of his achievements. I don't miss those pieces. I miss the memories. It's the simplest moments. It's his laugh. It's the hugs. It's the way he made me feel. And that stuck with me from that moment forward. I said, I've been chasing accolades, when in reality, I'm here to make memories. And that's what completely has shifted how I lead, how I show up, is I am no longer willing to do things just for the shiny opportunity if it means sacrificing important memories that matter to me and that don't really let me be authentic. So what I actually care about.
Oh, beautiful story. Wow, thank you so much. Sure. I know in your career in Silicon Valley, I mean, you were surrounded by really highly influential people. And what did leadership look like to you then? And if you can talk a little bit about how that's evolved.
Yeah, so I mean, I was sitting at these tables and I'm so grateful for them because I learned a lot and I grew a lot. And I was around, I think one of the biggest things was sometimes you have to see a journey, right? I saw people at extreme levels of wealth, extreme levels of power, a lot of what I thought I was working so hard for, thinking if I got there, I was gonna reach some expression of success. And again, I really honor everyone on their journey, but there came a moment, I remember there was a specific thing I shared on my podcast recently. There was a specific day I'll never forget in Vegas. I was I'm sitting at a table with all these really influential people, and I'm sitting there going, honestly, I would rather right now be at home in my comfy cozies with a puppy on my lap, spending time with my partner. What am I doing? At some point there's things that we can just stay doing, going, but it's like, but what's the cost and what's the sacrifice? And I think we don't often ask ourselves enough. And so for me, I was sitting there, I remember just many moments where I was like, great, I'm doing the things, but at what point do you realize you've completed? Like, I think that's the struggle often for many of us, is you get to a place of growth, but you don't have a way of measuring when it's enough. And that's what I finally saw in those circles, was I was like, it doesn't matter if you have the billions, there's still another billionaire with more. And so I remember that was my big teaching, was I was like, oh, my work is gonna be knowing when what I'm going for, but also knowing when I have to lovingly say, that's complete. And that was the big journey, was I sat at that table and went, I think I'm complete with what I was here to learn.
I'm gonna go home and have tea and have tea on my lap.
Exactly. Like, there came a point, because there were times when that table was extremely activating. There were times when that table changed my life. And then there came a point where I was like, I want a cup of tea and I want to have my comfiest socks on. And that would be actually a rich life for me right now.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Tonight's topic is lead like only you can. I'm sure there's a few question marks around what does that actually mean and why do you think it's so important now?
Well, okay, let's get a feel for the room. So who here has ever people pleased before? Yeah, we got that.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe once. Maybe once.
Whoever feels like you've said yes to something that you arrived there and you're like, dang it, I wish I wasn't here. Hopefully that's not tonight.
More than once.
Whoever here sat in a room where you get really tired by the end of the night. You're like around people you feel like you should enjoy, but ultimately you leave and you're like, I'm exhausted. Ever been in that situation? Anyone ever felt like your voice changes because you're trying to fit in a certain way?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what this is. Yeah. So a couple of those things. Or ever feel like you've wanted to be met by someone and have an intimate connection and just feel like no matter how much you try to show up, they just don't see you. Yeah. Actually, the most important question, because I'm going to totally go rogue, is who here has ever seen The Notebook? There's a point to this, I promise.
Like 5 times.
Who's ever cried unstoppably and uncontrollably in The Notebook? Okay, yeah, there we go. The movie, by the way. Yeah. So this idea, like this experience that we all share, which is often being in spaces where we haven't felt like our true selves. We're often safe, we're seen, we're accepted. We can see how collectively we all know this quite intimately. The reason I bring The Notebook up is because I can't get this image. I often think quite visually, and I love like a good Giphy or like a random scene from a movie. And I just can't get that image that maybe many of you will know, where it's like Ryan Gosling, I don't know what their actual character names are, and Rachel McAdams, and he's like, what do you want? We all know, right? But what do you want? And she's like, it's not that simple. It's like, what do you want, you know? And I think we all have such a collective connection to this movie, because regardless if you've ever been in that moment of like trying to choose love or that dynamic, we all know the tension that the actress is meeting of like, you're being met with an opportunity to really go for what you want, but it's often not the most convenient. It's often against what many people have expected from you. It's often what maybe will lead you to be misunderstood, rejected in different ways, and it's an act of courage to really go for what you love. And so when I say like lead like only you can, I do it from an energy of like every single one of us in this room came with a unique way that we're here to lead. And our unique expression is incredibly important. But yet we spend so much time, especially in the era of social media, comparing ourselves. That was another question I should have asked. Have you ever compared yourself or your life on social media? We'd all be like, yep. Because the thing is, there's so much that's trying to tell us, like, this is the one way to be successful, or like, this is the one career path. This is the one skill you should learn right now, when in reality, we all came with a very unique way that we're set to operate. And all I know is the more authentic you are, the more true you are to yourself, that's where what is truly meant for you to happen effortlessly unlocks. But yet so many of us are so busy trying so hard and striving so hard for things that are just lovingly closed for us on purpose, to protect us, to support us in moving towards where we're meant to go.
Which brings us beautifully to the gene keys that you love working with. Who knows about the gene keys? Have ever heard of the gene keys? Okay, a few. All right, handful. All right, so what are the gene keys, and how do you work with it to help people understand themselves better?
So what I love about the gene keys is I find they give you a map to know who you are on a soul level. Who did you come here? So one of my biggest curiosities with anyone I've ever met, if you've ever met me, probably at a coffee shop, or if we've had a deep and meaningful conversation, I am someone who likes to go straight to, who are you really? And even more than that, I'm curious on who did you come here to be before the world told you who to be? Who are you beyond what your family told you to be, what your culture, what society told you to be, what your best friend in high school told you to be, you know, like what your bosses expect from you. I'm so curious about like beyond all of that, who are you truly? And the gene keys give you a map to actually have data to understand yourself. And in a world I feel like right now, especially that's moving so fast with AI, with so much changing, I don't think there's anything more important than cultivating deep self-awareness. And I would even move it even more into soul awareness. Like, who are you truly? Because like anything with technology, these are all great things to amplify, but it's also a great opportunity to completely lose who we truly are, to get even more distracted, to get even more confused. You can go on and a thing can tell you, this is your next step. Yeah, but if you don't know who you really are, it's a really big trap to like lead yourself down and 5 years go, I don't know how I ended up here, but this is actually not me, and I'm not enjoying it. So that's a big one. I think the one other little piece I'll name as to why I love it so much is I'm very fascinated by communication. And I think specific communication. And what I love with this system is it gives you specific language to know yourself. So we all have 11 specific codes, and each code has 3 frequencies. So it gives you an indication of your shadows. Turns out we all have our shadows and challenges that we're navigating in this life. Your gifts, what are you really here to be a permission slip to activate in other people? And then really truly, like, what are the frequencies that you uniquely are here to be the embodiment walking into a room with.
And so, I mean, and I'm sure we'll touch on it in our conversation, but could you maybe just give an example of the codes that you mentioned, just to help kind of land it for people? It is, I know a little bit about the gene keys, but it also scares me. it's complex. So if you can just maybe give us an example, just to land it a little bit more.
Yeah. So where I love to focus, so to answer your question earlier, I do actually work with men and women. And it's amazing. I'm loving, it's just amazing to watch those who feel called to the system. And I found that there's 4 core areas that I like to lay as the foundation. Like I said, there's 11 codes. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of complexity, which is why I love the system. And at the same time, I like to keep things simple. I'm also someone who's very focused on practicality. Like, how does this go into the decisions you're making as a leader? A lot of those who I work with are making really important decisions, where one decision is a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of things. And so what I love is I focus on 4 key codes first, which is your mission, your money, your meaning, and your magnetism. So what are you here to do? Like, what are you truly here? If you had to come up with your brand story, which I think all of us as leaders have some version of a brand story, your money, like, how are you most authentically and simply here to attract wealth, circulate wealth? And that can not just be money, but also opportunities, resources, all of it. Your meaning, how are you here to enjoy the journey? Like, what is actually going to support you with making sure you have fun? I'm a very playful person, if you can't tell. I am here to have fun. I'm here to take things seriously, show up for our missions, but also I want to laugh. I want to dance. To know me is to know I will dance at any time, anywhere. And so there's that. And then magnetism. We all need to have a good filter for who are the people in our lives who are really here to expand us, and it gives you indication of that. So then I can give different examples I see with different clients on the different ones, but I remember even with you, I asked you, I kind of referenced your money code for a moment. So if you want to go into that, we can.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Should I be worried?
No. So as an example, I lovingly asked Yolande if I could look at her gene keys. And so I looked at, there's a couple things, but one of them that stood out to me was your money code. Because I know you've got multiple projects going on and different things happening. And your money code is all about moving from the shadow of distraction to the gift of enrichment, to the highest frequency of intoxication. So if Yolande comes to me and is like, okay, Alex, I want to be circulating wealth in a better way. I'm finding that I'm putting my energy into many things and it's just not quite working in my favor. My first question I immediately said to you was, where are you scattering your energy? Where are you feeling distracted? For Yolande, as an example, I'd look and go, okay, what are projects or different things that you think you have to do that you actually don't need to do? We would definitely look at simplification. And the big question we would look at is that enrichment energy is this energy of you're so lost in time because it's something that matters so much to you that it actually, if you weren't paid for it, you would just do it regardless.
Yeah.
And that's that intoxication. It's this intoxication of being so connected to a bigger picture, to a bigger desire, that it moves you. You're not moving so hard. And so as an example, that's like how I would look at it with you. But then, with different people, like I said, the different codes, we really look at kind of where you're at, what you're navigating, and it's a great system for making aligned decisions.
And when I looked at my chart, I mean, there's no real way for average Joe to just look at it and decode your coding. Really, it is necessary to have someone like you to talk them through it, right? Yeah.
I think I finally gotten to that place of naming that's the truth. I think it is a system. The book is, everyone goes, oh my gosh, this book, Lex, is this big. And I honor, if you feel called to spend the time and do it, I'm someone who's done it and I love it and I've gone through it, but I've also been in it for 10 years. I realize I'm almost at my 10-year point. And so it's definitely something that requires depth, but it's also definitely a system worth checking out, seeing if it really speaks to you, and then finding resources. So you don't feel like, I say this because the last thing I want is for you to go out and then get overwhelmed and then go, nope, can't do it. It's not that. It's just one of those that it's a beautiful one to lean on support in whatever way. There's lots of different resources in many places. So,
And you talk a lot about, on your podcast, you talk a lot about when you explain about the gene keys, you mention alignment so much that it's really finding that alignment with your energetic blueprints and your purpose. And how does that, how can that impact people's lives? And whether, I know you're big into leadership, but gene keys can affect all aspects of your life, correct?
Oh yeah, it can give indication whether it's your purpose, if you're trying to figure out how to, I mean, it's been, my husband is in the room tonight, and I will say it has been one of the biggest support systems for our marriage, and I've walked with a lot of couples through it, because here's the thing, and actually one of the pieces I haven't brought in as much, which is one of the main reasons I love it so much, is people. No matter how you're showing up in your life, whether you're someone who's leading an organization of many people, all of us have our families, all of us are showing up and leading. You lead when you walk into a coffee shop. Just your energy in that moment, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's paying attention. One conversation can change a person's life. And what I love is, for me in particular, it's given me a lot more understanding for others in my life to understand, oh, right, you're not meant to be like me. There's uniqueness to you. Okay, let me get curious. The more I understand myself, I can communicate more of my own needs, my own wants. Because that's the other big question why I brought in the notebook earlier is, most of the struggle, the question that I'm telling you, I've seen over and over again, causes more tension in people, and actually is a big link to alignment, is what do you really want? How many of us have had that moment when you really get honest, you're like, I don't know. Like there's that fear of like, what if I don't actually know? Or if you meet a great opportunity and it's not fully sure yet. Am I afraid because I actually just have to have the courage to step up, or am I afraid because something's trying to tell me it's not aligned? And so for me, I think there's a lot of energy with it, that it helps you to build a better relationship with yourself, to really know who you are so you can communicate effectively and actually take responsibility and name what you need. And then also on the flip, I think that I've really noticed is it's given me and a lot of others that I've walked through this process with a lot more awareness of how they can best operate with others in really beautiful, loving, truly conscious ways.
Just before we carry on, is there any questions so far? It's a lot of info to take in.
I just think it might be helpful for the audience to share with the Gene Keys, like how do you get your unique pattern?
Basically, what, like I said, yeah, like you named, is it puts in your birth details. And then the founder of the Gene Keys, his name is Richard Rudd. And it's grounded in multiple ancient traditions. So it incorporates your energetic data, astrological data, other systems like the Chinese I Ching, Hindu chakra system. And so it's quite a mixed system that way. Yeah, it gives you your blueprint that way. And like I said, once it comes out, you all have 11 specific codes. And each code is a different placement in your life. It shows a specific area. So like I shared 4 of them, your mission, meaning, but then you all also have a specific key that's part of it. So as I shared Yolanda's example of going from the shadow of distraction to the gift of enrichment to the city of intoxication. Yeah, that's the overview. But also, I do understand for all the visual learners in the room, I think seeing a visual does really help. Yeah.
There was a question there.
Hello. How does it differentiate, or how is it similar to human design? That's the last session we were here for, so we're super intrigued.
Also great. So Richard Rudd, the founder, actually, he studied directly with the creator of human design and then incorporated aspects of human design and then found for him, he just shared an expansive level of it. So I also started with human design. And for those who aren't familiar, human design gives you this really beautiful operating manual to understand yourself. I like Gene Keys for me personally because I feel like it gives a bit more of a feminine, deep, it goes into more language specifically of your gifts and codes in that way. But they work really well together. But that's where it gets. He definitely got inspired and was impacted through human design and then kind of took it and added a lot more depth in a way to it. My experience of it.
I feel like the Gene Keys, it goes in layers. Like our first is the sort of astrological, just brief oversight. Then you get into the human design, which is structural, your literal chakra system, like how your physical body works. And then the Gene Keys, it literally goes into the DNA. It's like our untapped so-called junk DNA codes that get unlocked through understanding the knowledge that's living literally within our cells. So if you actually think of it from a gene, it's like the microscopic layer to the potentiality of our soul system.
That's perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you, Annette.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
For those of you that are not very familiar with Richard Rudd, I've done sort of reading and dabbling more than anything. But if you go on and you go into the free profile and you sign up, you get a weekly Gene Keys reading of one of the Gene Keys. And he's just got the most amazing ability to articulate language in this gorgeous voice. It's about 20 minutes and just a lovely way to get familiar with it. And then absolutely, I would agree, get it interpreted. I'm still heading in that direction. And he's also got a little app called the Triple Flame app where you can go in and get little meditations on how to pause regularly through the day. So I'm finding it amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love the way you both articulated your experiences. And exactly, he is a poet. You can feel that in how he expresses. He's a writer, he's a communicator. He takes something that could otherwise be so complicated and complex and something that's so, like Annette named too, hidden. And so many people I think have been afraid to talk about, and gives language in such a way that just speaks to our heart. I think that's why his work connects to so many of us.
I really loved something. I mean, a lot of your podcasts I loved, but something that really jumped out to me when listening to one of the episodes was asking ourselves, am I giving my best energy to what is most important to me? It's like it really jumped out at me because. I mean, it's so funny when you said distraction, when we spoke earlier about it, about me, I was like, okay, this sounds very familiar. My creativity and mind just goes all over the place. And when I listened to this and I heard this, I just felt that, okay, in every day and every moment, that's a way to come back to alignment. And am I giving my best energy to what's most important to me? If you can just elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's probably one of the number one questions that I sit with as a foundation in my life. And why I've always loved the Gene Keys is I think it helps every person figure out and have curious questions with yourself on, like yours with distraction. You go, okay, I can't unsee that this is the specific language that's helpful for me to navigate, where I might be sabotaging myself, and what would be supportive and actually ensuring that I am focused on what I really care about. I feel that tool is so good for the self-awareness piece. And then the how I really focus on actually making sure we give our best energy to what matters most is I focus on rituals. So all of us, I think ritual is a term that's thrown around a lot, but for me, what they really mean is in the Silicon Valley world, the habits conversation became so prevalent. And I'm really grateful for it. And I feel like there was this moment where I kept hearing everyone say, I just want to put everything on default. Like, I don't want to think about anything I wear ever again. Everything was like, get everything into an autopilot so I basically can go through my life and never think. And I would sit there, and obviously there's some decisions. We all know, like, let's automate a few things that we don't need to be spending our time constantly thinking about. Yet there's a lot of, again, me going back to memories being the thing that creates richness in life, which is why what you give your best energy matters most is the key of this whole thing. Rituals to me are about choosing what you're devoted to doing on a regular basis for joy. Because they're the things that ensure that you are the best version of yourself. That you feel like you actually, everyone says like, fill up your own cup first, but how many of us know sometimes we just don't do it? Because life has a lot happening. And so what I love to say is, I think what actually helps us to do the things is to add joy. So make it something that makes you more present. So in a world where, again, this habit conversation is trying to tell us all, turn off, I'm the antidote. I think the quality of our life is dependent on the quality of our presence. And so making sure you have rituals and things you do in your life. I've watched people with clients, we create business rituals. How can you turn the mundane thing you have to do to keep the engines running? How can you turn a ritual, like how can you make things into rituals? So
Can you give us an example?
Oh yeah, so a big one that a lot of my clients navigate is content. So for me, even as a podcast creator, I don't just sit down and click record. That's just not how I operate. I set up my space. I light a candle. I specifically do a type of dance before because I know it gets me out of my head and into my body. Even here, and everyone's doing their goodies here, there was rituals I was doing before, right? I'm like moving my body. I don't just go into things. I like to be intentional. And I know what helps me. The reason I know my body is a big piece is because of my gene keys. I know that it helps me to come back into that embodied state. And so, because for me, one of my keys for my health, so for my health code is intimacy. So for me, a lot of my journey with my health code is moving out of the shadow, as an example, of dishonesty, into the gift of intimacy, into the city of transparency. So I know not only does it support me to just ensure I have things that keep me intimate to myself. You can bet before this, I was cuddling my puppy and just spending time. Because for me, animals are a really big way I feel held. And so that's a big piece for me is I think the two pieces are find a way to support yourself on knowing what actually matters to you and be okay with honoring that what matters to you might not be what so-and-so over here cares about and so-and-so over here cares about, and be aware that you're probably going to be misunderstood by certain people. Like that's just life. But know what matters to you and focus, like make sure they're a priority. And then I really invite you to create at least one ritual, like daily, ideally, but if it's weekly. One of my clients, one of her things I'm having her do right now is go on a date with her inner child every week. Because her inner child is where she gets all of her creative ideas, and because she has a key gift of innocence. And she's been very disconnected from that part of herself. And it's been fun to watch how her just doing that has been activating her from being just way too serious about everything and starting to notice what insights come through. And usually, if you just give yourself the gift of that space, so many things simplify.
And I can see how that, how that can be applied to leadership, business, personal life, everything really. Can you talk a little bit more about, considering we're talking about leading as only you can, so how does rituals come into play? And if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I feel like we all getting into a rhythm. Like I'm here for, especially for the women in the room, we operate with an infradian cycle. We don't have a 24-hour cycle. I know I have spent, in my Silicon Valley career, since we spoke about it, I was often the only woman at a lot of tables, in a lot of rooms, which I honored as, okay, I'm gonna show up here and I'm gonna give my all in everything I am doing. But if I could give myself a piece of wisdom, it would have been, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not meant to be operating the same way every single day. There's going to be weeks where you feel on fire and so magnetic and so full of energy. And then there's going to be weeks where you're like, I just need a lot of extra support. I need a lot less stimulation. And also we're lifing. So we can't always control schedules. We can't always manage, but there's a lot of choices that we all have, more than we give ourselves often credit for. So I think for just the women in the room, I want to name up front that I think it's so powerful. If there's one thing that has completely been key for me to really even set up good rituals and aligned rituals, has been really loving my cycle and really honoring that. And for the men in the room, if you've got a partner, if you've got women in your life you love, to know what's happening with theirs. I kid you not, I know it will actually give you a lot of relief, is what I find for a lot of the men. They're like, okay. This is okay, it works, it's best for everybody, it turns out. And then in terms of rituals, I would say, like I already named, it's really for the joy. I think we have to know why we're doing things. So I think a lot of why things...
Even with leading is also...
Yeah, like even when you're leading, is there anyone in the room right now who feels like you're leading a project or doing something that you kind of, if you're honest, don't really have energy to be doing? Yeah, like you're on a project, you have a client, you have something where you're like, the big question is to go in to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? And sometimes it doesn't mean you're supposed to like change everything the next day. But sometimes it's an invitation to get clear on, okay, what is this asking me to shift? What is this asking me to change? Because as an example, I think it's been very glamorized for a lot of people to become entrepreneurs. And I walked with a lot of people on the entrepreneurial journey. Yet I've also been a very practical person with many people to name that entrepreneurial. I was having a conversation, who was it, Oliver earlier, just about like how I believe entrepreneurship as an example is one of the most spiritual journeys you can ever go on. You meet yourself, because it turns out you're your own boss. So when things aren't working out, it's you and yourself. And I also can see through different people's gene keys and their systems where some of that level of instability and up and down can be a lot more for their system. So I'm quite practical in that if you think a change needs to be made, sometimes you have to just be a bit more of a long game thinker. For some, it might make sense to have a side to work in corporate for a period of time while they're building something. You know, even your example, right? Like you could have gone off and been like, Curious Exchange is going to be my everything. Yet for you, you figured out that actually having your corporate career while doing this really serves your bigger vision. So I also don't want to glamorize this idea, because I think sometimes it's like things aren't working out, just immediately tomorrow change everything or leave the relationship or whatever it is. It's like, see it as data, get curious, and ask yourself, what's a ritual where you can be in conversation with yourself? That would be if I could just give a general ritual to anybody, which you can also message me or send a DM. It's been the ritual I've been doing for also probably about a decade now. It's my morning writing ritual, which just gives me a way to check in with my voice every day, every morning. And I haven't done it, I've gone through seasons, but I've done it quite regularly for almost 10 years. And I kid you not, I think we forget that the power of actually just having an intimate connection with our voice can make so many changes and can give you a lot of clarity about what patterns you're playing out, what's not actually working, what is really working, what to appreciate more. And a lot of it happens slow and steady in a world.
Sorry, so how would you do it?
Do the morning ritual?
Yeah.
Oh, so I have a guide. So I'll tell it all to you here, but ultimately I have a guide that can support you with actually visually seeing it. But basically there's 5 steps. It's actually quite simple. To ask yourself, how does my body feel right now? Notice I start with the body and not the mind. Because the body is really where so many, like, what do we actually feel? And often, because you just wake up, we can underestimate just how much is going on. And maybe that day you say, I'm tired, whatever it may be. But I'll tell you, I had a lot of gut health issues for a while. And there came a point just through daily having a chat with myself where I couldn't not see the patterns and started to get clear on which data points were working. And then that, of course, with the gene keys and data of contemplation got me really clear on changes I needed to make, refinements, things I needed to finally say yes to. But the second is then, what is my mind, like mind dump? What am I thinking? I think blank. And then some days you feel like you need a minute to say it, and some days you might find yourself needing a lot more time. There's a lot of thoughts. And to really honor that. And then the third is gratitude. There's a lot of science to show why gratitude matters. But to really take a moment to feel gratitude for the simplest things. Again, you'll be shocked at what usually is the thing. And then otherwise, it's very simple. One inspired intention for the day. Who do you want to be for this day? What's one word that's your compass? Do you want to be focused? Do you want to be joyful? Do you want to be present? And then one aligned action. Just one, like out of everything you're going to do in the day. What's the one most important action? And what I like to always remind myself is simple is sustainable.
What's simple is sustainable?
Simple is sustainable. The simpler I keep it, the more I know I will continue to show up for it.
Beautiful. Who needs to read Atomic Habits? If you can just nail that, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's it's a simple ritual that any of us can do. Yes, Ollie.
Thank you. Really enjoying the talk and also feeling the presence that you're bringing into the talk. So thank you. Where you're at, you're talking about habits and you're talking about rituals. And I'd love it if you could speak into, from your perspective, a habit versus a ritual versus a routine versus a behavior.
Great question. So I think James Clear does a great job of explaining habits. There's a great book called Atomic Habits. The way I see habits is it's all about getting things into default. The intention is you get yourself into such an automatic behavior that it's just second nature, which, like I said, I really honor. Then rituals to me are if you took something that you do regularly and said, I want to be really present for this. So I don't want to go into automated mode. I don't want to turn off. I actually want to be really present. So like even an example I see a lot with my mamas that I work with is like creating rituals with their kids, right? Something like, okay, every night I need to go, I read with my child before they go to bed, right? Something that creates so much tension for them. Okay, how can you make it into a ritual with your kid? Like, how does it become just so joyful that you enjoy it, actually? So we've done like different things where you add just that little bit of joy. For me, there's just something specific about adding some taste that's intentional. It's very intentional. I would say whereas habits are default, rituals are intentional, and there's an added spark of joy. Then routine to me is definitely when things are stacked on top of each other. So it could be a mix of a habit and then a ritual, but it's your routine of the day, right? It's kind of, I like the word rhythm a lot more than necessarily routine, but it's like if you look at certain things you do that are like multiple stacked habits or multiple stacked rituals back to back, they build to create a routine. So you might be like, okay, on my Monday, I love to go to the gym. And then after I go to the gym, I always do this ritual where I go and I write my content for the week. And then after I do that, I have my weekly meeting with my team. Those all stack into the routine. And the behavior, I don't know what the exact definition of behavior is, but to me, I feel like behavior is action. What you're, like it's more of a general term, like what you simply do and how you move and
It
operate
feels like
in the world.
ritual, there is, I mean, even the word, it feels like there's a little bit of magic and spark in it. And it's, yeah, it's spiritual. I was just going to say, it does feel like you're really adding like something soulful into it. I mean, I joke with I joke with some of my some girlfriends, seeing if anyone's here, where we laugh, just even having a tea at home or a cacao will be turned into a ritual, just like a little thing. It's just like being very, very present and maybe just saying with what intention, I'm going to drink this cacao with. It's just adding that bit of, beautiful magic to it. I don't know if I'm articulating it.
Yeah, no,
That's
exactly.
what it feels like, what you're talking about.
It is, again, even going back to what you brought forward with the energetics of the gene keys, like what I'm bringing forward is an energy thing. It's your energy. And like, can we honor that? I definitely believe our energy is our greatest life and business asset. And I've seen, actually, my boss, one of the last bosses I worked with, he would always say when we were hiring or doing anything, he's like, what I hire for is attitude. It's energy. Because he's like, the rest, actually, a lot of the rest I can teach. I cannot teach attitude.
Wow.
And it's always stuck with me. It's like we forget that the energy behind we do things. That's why there's also that famous quote by Maya Angelou. It's like people will never remember what you said or how you exactly said it. Often they remember, I'm paraphrasing, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And so again, but like we forget that like how we live our own lives is where it all starts. Who are you when no one's looking? How do you show up for the simplest things? And if you're not present with you, then guarantee that just ripple effects into so many other relationships you're in. And one of the biggest moments when I asked earlier that a lot of people felt was wanting to be seen by other people. But I often name anytime someone comes to my world and says, I just wish so-and-so would see me more. I wish my partner got this about me. I go, where are you not seeing yourself? Where are you not madly in love with all facets of yourself, including your cute little shadows and challenges and messy parts? But the more I know that I have spent time falling in love with those parts, and it is a never-ending journey. That's, I think, what makes this human experience fun. But the more I fall in love with it, the more I quickly watch. I actually don't feel as judged by whoever I'm convinced will be judging me for something. That's interesting. That's because usually it starts with ourselves.
We are very sadly running out of time. I'm curious, is there anyone that's worked with gene keys that can share a little bit about how it's affected their lives?
Thanks, Lexi. Yeah, Lex has opened my whole heart, mind, and soul with the gene keys, so I really vouch for it. I would say it's, I guess everything like the Bible, astrology, these are all things that are philosophies or ways of making meaning out of the life and who we are. And if you are curious about life and purpose and meaning, then I feel this particular system provides such a like poetic, brilliant, scientific. It's actually quite scientific and like sacred geometry scientific, but also it's just really beautiful. It is very it seems kind of intimidating at first because the languaging is quite advanced in some ways, but once you read that book and you really contemplate, and I think the beauty of it, which I appreciate compared to something like human design or astrology, is like Lex said, it's not about fixing the shadow. It's contemplating that we are constantly evolving and there's no destination. It's actually rather, how do I understand my life and how I relate, and how can I essentially turn this into a gift rather than something that's held me back. And this act of contemplation is so humbling because we are always evolving, and the fact that it is literally genetic coding, DNA structures, we now understand that our DNA is shifting. So by having language to then contemplate on, you're actually shifting your genes, quite literally. So I feel it's opened up my mind very, very deeply, and it's like a rabbit hole because you can just keep going. But for sure, if you look at people's systems, like we obviously know each other's, we did weekenders, like to do it with your partners or friends over the weekend and actually look at your charts or decide, okay, we're going to do the money code this weekend and we're just going to go through it. It did huge things for our friendship group. I mean, it feels like we all saw each other in a new light. And when you get to do it with people you know, you see that there is undoubtedly something very true to this, because what our codes are so different, but because I know you, it makes so much sense that that's your code and this is mine, you know. So it really gets to show it for its value beyond just work, but friendship, relationships, etc.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. How can people get? And I mean, I know that we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. How can people get involved? How can they learn more?
Yeah, so if you're curious about checking out your Gene Keys, you can go to genekeys.com and you can check out your free profile. That's what I recommend first. Go check it out. See if it speaks to you, because I also am not here to say this is the only system. I'm not here into dogma. I'm really here for you finding what supports you in being a version of yourself that you love deeply. And so that's what I would say. And then I have my podcast is a great place. Episodes 15 and 16, if you'll remember those numbers, are really where you can get me. Like I intentionally create my podcast from an energy of being experiential. I always imagine it's like you and I drinking a cup of tea, again, me and my comfy cozies, that was always my dream, right? That I just imagine us drinking a cup of tea and us going through and me going like, hey, I want to see you. Who are you? What are you navigating? And so the podcast is a great place to connect, and also send me a DM about it. I'm genuinely here for the conversations. I need to know me is to know I live for conversations. I'm here to know what's happening. What are you curious about? Where are you trying to grow? And then, those are kind of the best places. And then I mentioned the ritual guide, the morning ritual guide. I also, of course, have a podcast episode on that. But if you also just send me a DM saying morning or ritual, if it's not that guide, I will send you something. So, but more than anything, I just really thank you so much for you having me here. And I'm really grateful for each and every one of you for showing up. I know we're all, and for Rowan, I'm excited to hear what you share next. And I don't take it lightly that in the midst of this winter season, we all came out of our homes, out of our spaces. And I hope you see me as definitely someone who would love to know you on a soul level, and to know I'm definitely a champion for that with you.
Oh, amazing. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much.